In the history of the gay rights movement, there are few moments as pivotal as the Stonewall Uprising, a night in June 1969 when, confronted by a police raid at the Stonewall Inn in New York City, members of the gay and lesbian communities fought back against police injustice. The rebellion that ensued that night, and on subsequent nights at the Stonewall, eventually helped to spark the modern-day gay rights movement. It set in motion a social justice juggernaut that would see the nullification of same-sex sodomy laws by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2003 and the legalization of same-sex marriage in 2015. One of those present in the bar in the early morning hours of June 28, 1969, was David Bermudez. A window dresser for a leading New York department store at the time, Bermudez was grabbing a beer with friends shortly after midnight. Then the lights came on and the police burst in. In this moving interview with PFLAG Cape Cod's Rick Koonce, Bermudez, today a member of PFLAG Cape Cod along with his husband Bob Isidore, describes the events of that fateful evening more than half a century ago. David Bermudez, welcome to Profiles in LGBTQ Courage. We're so pleased to have you as our guest for the Stonewall edition of our show.
Welcome here, and it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be on your show.
Stonewall was such a pivotal moment in gay history. Early in the morning of June 28th, 1969, you were among those in the Stonewall bar when police burst in. And I'm wondering if you could begin by telling our listeners, what was it like that night when that happened?
One of the reasons why actually I was at the Stonewall is because that week, a very famous singer-actress that we all loved very, very much was Judy Garland. She was in England, and we got notice that she died of an overdose in England in her apartment. So I was living at that time, I was living at the YMCA in the 60s, on the west side of the 60s. And a friend of ours called me and said, Dave, what we should do is let's go to the village and let's have a couple of drinks and celebrate her life. And I said, well, no, I just, I really didn't want to do that. So I would say about 10:30 or something like that. A couple of my friends called me back and says, come on, Dave, let's just get in the subway, go to West 4th Street, and let's, just go to a couple of bars and have some drinks and then come back home. So I said, okay, let's do that. So I did. We got in the subway, we got to West 4th, we went to Julius's, which was a famous bar around there too, and other bars, and it was jam-packed. And the night was a beautiful, beautiful night. In New York City, if the night is a beautiful night and the moon is out, everybody's out. You don't get many of those. You don't get many of those nights. So we went to all the bars, and it was getting late. Oh, by the way, I was moving into a new studio apartment that I was getting in New York City. It was my first little apartment, and I was very excited. So I had to get back. So we were hitting a couple of them. Then I would say probably close to 1 o'clock or something. I said, I got to get back because I've got to get up early and get out of the way. They give you so much time to leave, like a hotel. So they said, no, let's go to one more bar. And I said, no, I got to get back. So in New York City, if you know about New York City, you don't get on a subway by yourself at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I hear you.
I could say that as a New Yorker, okay? And I says, all right. So we were very close to a small bar called the Stonewall. So we get there, and when you get to the door at that time, there was a book on the table, and there was a doorman outside. And you would always, he would let you in if you accepted it, and you go in and you have to put your name down on this book. That was the thing they did at all the bars at that time. So, and it was funny because a lot of the guys used to put, Rudy Kazooie, Donald Duck. You know what I mean? Anyone put their
Yes.
name,
When Dave and his friends went to the Stonewall, they had a favorite place they liked to sit, chat, and drink. It was at the back of the bar in an alcove area that included small booths.
So we went inside, and a boy would come over and ask you what you want to drink. And I used to always drink beer in a bottle, So I went ahead and we were doing our thing. And I don't know we were there already over 1 o'clock. It could have been 1:20, 1:30, whatever. They used to have, if you don't know, the bars, all of them, the lesbian bars, all of them had lights. And when a very big light came on, a bright, bright light, that means, oh, there's something going on. We're probably going to get raided. Something's going to happen. So you stop dancing and just mingle and drink your drink and smoke your cigarettes like they did. And, you used to do that. So we were there, and all of a sudden, this bright light goes on, and we went, oh, my God, what is that? It's 1:30 something in the morning. It's a night that a lot of us were very down because of losing Judy. So it went on, and all of a sudden, there was these two doors. The cops come in, and I saw men, plain clothes, like us. And then I saw two cops, and I think one of them was a woman cop.
The police, members of the Public Morals Squad at the time, slammed the doors behind them and told patrons to separate from one another. Dave and his friends knew, at that point, to take out their IDs to show the cops when they asked for them.
We always had IDs, and the IDs never had a picture. Like today, you would have an ID, or, and you have a little picture of you. We never had that. So you take out your ID, and when they came over, calling you names and whatever they wanted to do, we would always be ready with our IDs and show them IDs, and then they'll say if they didn't like you, get out of the bar, or if they had nothing wrong, they just said okay, and they kept on going and taking IDs from everybody.
Suddenly, Dave and his friends heard something. Elsewhere in the bar, a patron was yelling profanities at a cop, telling him to get his hands off him.
I hear a noise, and I said to I had two friends of mine with me who actually passed away, during the AIDS virus in the 80s. And I said, what's going on? We were young guys, and I hear, I'm not going to tell you the language.
Yeah.
Forget it. So you hear all this, and you hear, get your hands off me, and they called them dirty coppers, and all that kind of stuff was going on. And then we saw people throwing bottles or you had these stools at the bar and all that, throwing that. It just got to be really ugly,
At that point, Dave and his friends decided they needed to get out of the bar.
The first thing, we looked at each other and said, we have to get out of here. But when you go into the Stonewall, when you're way in the back and to the door, to get out, you got to go through all that thing to get out of the door. And the door was still closed. So a friend of mine says, Dave, let's just do our things. Let's see if we can get through this, or whatever is going on. We really want to get involved, to be honest with you. We just wanted to get out. Because a lot of people actually they've never known that if you were arrested, the policeman would take your names, your address, and everything and give it to the press. And then maybe Sunday, you open up the middle of Daily News or something like that, and you'll see all the names and addresses of all the people who were arrested or were at a gay bar.
So that was the threat.
Yeah, because then if you did, our parents would read it and they would throw us out of the house. Who knows what they would do? You had an apartment, a landlord read it, they throw you out of there. A job, they throw you out of your job. So I said to them, I have a good job, had a terrific job in New York. I was going into a new apartment, and all I'm saying, oh, it's going to be awful. So we were trying to get out. When we were trying to get out to get there, we got to about, I would say, probably the middle of the bar, and all of a sudden, I I got hit with the cops used to have a billy club. It's a piece of wood, it's a billy club, and they hit me in the neck, and I fell onto the ground. And my friends were trying, we were all trying to fight to get out and all that. So then I got up and I saw this guy in front of me, very handsome guy, and I says, "Hey, what are you hitting me for? What is going on?" Not knowing he was a plain clothesman
Wow.
that did that. So before I was ready to say something or even swing at him, somebody grabbed him and pushed him down on the floor. The whole thing started. So here we are, and we're still trying to get out, and we're pushing our way through, and they're trying to put handcuffs on us and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of us were very, like myself, very feisty. I'm getting to the front of the door, and I see this policeman on top of this young boy, and he has his billy club on his neck, and he's pushing down. And the kid was feisty; he was fighting and fighting and fighting, And I went to grab the policeman to get him off, the kid, And my friends kept saying, "David, David, we got to get out of here. We're going to be arrested. You know what I mean? We got to get out." So we got out. We got into the street. The
Wow.
problem there that night was that it's not only, a lot of people talk about who started it. All that. We don't. People like us don't even talk about that. All we know is that we were we were there fighting our way out of a bar where the policemen were to try. You never know. They might have killed us. We don't know.
Once outside the bar, Dave and his friends ran into a crowd of people. There was a lot of commotion and also more police.
When we went outside, there was a thing called a truck called a paddy wagon. All right, a lot of people don't like me to say paddy wagon, but they were called paddy wagons.
Yes.
So if you want to look at history, they were called, and it was a truck with two doors in the back and wooden seats on each side, and they used to take you to the nearest precincts and all that. So they were coming, and they were taking the drag queens were the first ones. They were the ones that really got the blunt of this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If you did arrest them, you're going to arrest drag queens. There was young boys that used to come to the bar as pretty little young boys, and they used to go into the bathroom and put on lipstick and do up their face and put on a little blouse, just to be in the bar. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they go in the bathroom and wash up and go home. So we were seeing this, and when we were coming out, all of a sudden there was people. I remember it was the night already Judy was buried, that day.
Yes.
So there was a lot of people in the village, a lot of people in the village. So by doing this, you could hear people say, don't do that. Get your hands off this girl. They were drag queens and all that. And people were screaming. It wasn't gay people, straight people in the street. Leave them alone. Why are you doing this and all that? So they would take the drag queens and they put them in the paddy wagon, all right? And, they were very lovely, beautiful, beautiful drag queens. I always remember that. And like ladies, they would walk in there. But this time, they rebelled. They went ahead and they said, no, we don't want to be in there. And that's what started the riot outside.
Dave says that back in the day, the Mafia-owned Stonewall Inn was known for several things. It was a place where gay people felt safe gathering because the Mafia paid bribes to minimize police raids. It was also known for its dance floor, its smoky and scuzzy ambience, and the beauty of its drag queens. The drag queens, Bermudez says, might have been transvestites or transgender persons, but that was never discussed. In fact, he says to have drawn attention to it might have been dangerous.
The Stonewall had a lot of drag queens, a lot of beautiful drag queens. And I'll tell you something, in the 50s, they were absolutely beautiful. today people, they go back and forth, transvestites, transgenders, cross-dressers, and they say to me, why don't you talk about them? I don't talk about them. And the guys that are still alive, by the way, out of 200 and something guys, there's only like 20 of us left. A lot of them are in Florida or California or New York here. So, I say to them, look, you have to understand, number one, we were gay. We didn't walk around telling people we were gay. It was like, you want to get your, behind, beat up. Nobody would say, I'm a transgender, I'm a cross-dresser, you know what I mean? Or something like that. To us, we looked at whoever came in like that. To us, they were drag queens. And you wouldn't say that either. That was dangerous a lot for the drag queens if they were something like that.
It was such a different time, Dave, and I'm kind of curious. So you got out of the bar, you're observing this activity between the drag queens and people in the paddy wagon and people standing around. And it's my understanding that at some point, someone started throwing bricks and bottles, and that's sort of what arose into a riot. Is that correct?
Well, it's something, Rick. I'll tell you something. Have you ever been in a riot?
I can't say as I have.
No, all right. Come on. Everybody does everything. The only thing we were worried about is if somebody pulled a gun on us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. They were throwing bricks. They were throwing. We had these garbage pails. They look like mesh. You ever see those garbage pails? Yeah, and they used to throw paper in there and burn them and take the garbage pails and throw them at the Stonewall at the window, things like that, and bricks and all that. But that really doesn't mean a thing. Once you're in a riot, a lot of things happen.
Things were happening fast, and you were caught up in this. And I think you had shared with me earlier that you didn't hang around. You got out of there. Is that right?
Yeah. We got the three of us got out, but we were outside because we saw these crowds of people, more and more and more people coming. You know what I mean? And then these cop cars and these paddy wagons, and it became sort of like what's going on? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we went outside. This was going on, and we started yelling. Leave us alone. And people just started saying all kinds of things, which I'm not going to say, and I saw that, and I said, to the guys, you think we should stay here? He says, well, we got to see what's going on, Dave. You know what I mean? Outside, because they're not going to arrest all the people outside in the street. You know what I mean? Only the people in the bar. So we did, and we saw all that going on, and the young kids. Well, we were all young, but the younger kids, the street kids, they had nothing to lose. They would yell, they would scream, they would call the cops dirty names, they would throw things at them and all that stuff. That's the way it was at that time. Now, We wouldn't do that, all right? But we saw a lot of these things happening to a point where we couldn't believe that it was becoming that. We could see maybe, coming in and showing ID and saying, you get out and all that, and they leave. That's how they used to do it, and they just do that and they leave, But this time, it got to a point where they were getting very physical on us. If they got us, they would hit us with billy clubs. It was, and put us in paddy wagons, and it was just almost something that, to be honest with you, I never thought I would ever see in my life.
Yeah. Dave, as we talk about this, I think it would be valuable for our listeners to know something of the environment, the atmosphere of what it was like to be gay in New York City, in America, in the 1960s. And I think you've told me that raids on bars were quite common, weren't they?
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about the humiliating things things that cops would require patrons of these gay bars to do when there was a raid?
Well, as far as that, it's funny you're saying that. I'm thinking, all right. We asked, why did this happen? And nobody knew that the cops were coming into the Stonewall when we all knew that we were safe in the Stonewall because they were paying mighty money to the police department. Once in a while, I think about a week before they came in and they left, that kind of stuff. And we asked that, why weren't we told this? We found out through some guys that worked at the bar, they didn't pay the cops that month.
The owners of the bar, is that, or who would be paying the payola?
Yeah, they didn't pay their payola to the cops that month.
Interesting.
So, and then we found out that there was a mayor called Mayor Lindsay from New York City, and he was having a hard time for his reelection, very hard time, and he didn't know what to do, so he told the police department and all, raid the bars tonight, because tomorrow it'll be like Mayor Lindsay raided the bars and he arrested all these, faggots, homosexuals,
perverts, yeah.
And that would hurt. Yeah, right. We got when we got beat up, But that's what he had. And exactly that's had happened the next day. It did. The papers had it on there for Mayor Lindsay.
By the time of Stonewall, Dave Bermudez had been roughed up by police on a number of occasions. On one particular occasion, the roughing up was especially brutal.
A friend of mine, a Latin friend of mine, always wanted to have a gay bar. Always wanted one. And it was very hard to have that, So he went to the 60s on Columbus Avenue and he rented a basement, a basement in an old building. And he had guys come in, paint the walls and, fix it up as best he could. Had a little tiny table with a skirt on it with all kinds of drinks. His register was a little cigar box, and he was opening up that night. So we said, let's go see him. And it was like a quarter to get in, you know what I mean? Just to help him. So we get in there. And about 2, 3 o'clock, this is New York, right? My friend said, let's go. So we said, okay. So we were leaving. So when we were leaving, they said, let's take a cab. And I says, no, it's a beautiful night. I'm going to walk. I was living at the Y, okay? So I walked to the Y. So when I was walking the street, the cars come towards you this time. You see all the lights and all that. So I saw a police car coming towards me, nothing. And I kept walking. And then all of a sudden I hear, hey, you faggot, and I'm not saying nothing, Rick, nothing. Hey, you freaking whatever, queer or whatever they want to, they called you really bad names. So then I turned around like a little wise guy and I says, hey, you talking to me? And they said, yeah, get over here, and it was 4 cops. So I went up to the car, they grabbed me. They pushed me against the car. They beat the hell out of me with the billy club. They kicked me. They punched me. And they wanted what I had in my pocket. I must have had $2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when they did, they says, we saw where you came from. And I'm looking at them and I says, what do you mean? We know you were in that faggot bar and all that. The next time we see you in that faggot bar, you know what you're going to get. And I said nothing. They left, they got in the car, and here I am, all beat up I was down, and there's people walking around and nobody did anything at all, just to show you what era we lived, okay? So I got up and I walked to the YMCA. When you get in the Y, there's like a lobby and all that, and my friends that were with me were in the lobby, and they said, gee, David, you must have drank a lot. I said, no. So I told them, and they went, what are you talking about? I told them the story like I'm telling you. So I go in there and I looked at them and I says, I can't go through this. This is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Dave, it's okay. It's okay. Well, to be honest with you, Rick, I didn't go to the bars for 2 years.
It was such a different era Dave, and I'm recalling that around the time of Stonewall, actually in the year 1967, there was a report on CBS News. You maybe remember this infamous, notorious documentary called The Homosexuals, which featured Mike Wallace, which really depicted gay life as this very disordered, a community of people. And it was about that era, but gay people were really treated very poorly, weren't they?
Every friend of mine that I had, really close friends, not even my friends, people that we knew, they were beat up. They were sent to the nearest precinct. They were arrested, and not only arrested, but when they were arrested, they would beat them up in the jailhouse. You know what I mean? And then they would ask them for money that they didn't have. More, these kids, they didn't have any money. And they wanted like $200 or something like that. But it was more than that. It was just that if you were gay, you could talk about it to your families, and you forget it, especially when you come from families that were Catholics, or my father like a minister, or that kind of stuff. You would only find it with the gay people. So in the village, it was not all gay. The village was heterosexual. You know that. A lot of Italians lived there. They had a lot of really nice Italian restaurants and coffee shops and all that. And there was a lot of straight people. But an area of the village, Christopher Street, and all that up there became a haven for the gays to hang out, and there was a little bar here and a little bar there. There was gay, lesbians bars on the other side. And, so we all knew that here's the people we're going to hang around with, and we could not talk about it. We could only do it with friends that we went with, or we went to visit, or things like that. But that's the era. That era, you couldn't do that. And that's why I say, when somebody asks me about the cross dressers, or all the people that they feel they were left out of it, you have to understand, we didn't talk like that.
Yeah,
we were just gay. It was
Well, the language wasn't yet there for all the distinctions in the LGBTQ community. Eh?
No.
Yes.
No. Oh, another thing, the Q that they use, which is queer. We used to get our behind beat up just with that one. And that was a word that was so offensive to us, because this is how we got beat up. This is what they used on us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They didn't call us homosexuals. Maybe once in a while. They called us queer. They called us perverts. They did all these ugly names while they were hitting us.
Yes. Dave, I'm sure you're aware that in 2019, New York City Police Commissioner James O'Neill publicly apologized for the Stonewall raid. He called it wrong, plain and simple. And I'm wondering, when you heard that news, what did you think?
What I think about him saying that, I'll be honest with you, I give him credit. You know what I mean? It wasn't his people, because at that time the police was different. And we gave him credit. We talked about it. A lot of us talked about it, and we said thank you and all that. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of the gays didn't like it. They said, I don't need your apology. Why were you there doing that? Why did you raid us when it was only to show the ID, and maybe even say, get out of the bar and close the bar? Why did you beat us up? And that was the questions that were asked to them.
Yes.
And, that always stayed with us older guys now that we're here, and girls. Why would you come in there and actually beat the hell out of us?
I'm curious, as we talk about all of this. Since Stonewall, of course, same-sex sodomy laws were struck down in Texas by the U.S. Supreme Court, and then, of course, marriage equality came along in 2015. And I'm wondering, what's your assessment of this country's progress with acceptance of LGBTQ people today?
Okay, well, I'll tell you something, Rick. In the 80s, AIDS came out. And when AIDS hit, it was killing all the boys. It was just a horrible, horrible time to live. in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. I even lost my own cousin. And Bob and I were living in California, which was it was pretty bad. And we had a nice group of friends, gay, lesbian, and all that. The lesbians, no. It was the guys. And here they're talking about in Massachusetts to get married. And I even said to Bob and some friends of mine, give me a break. We went through this horror in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, even the 70s. And then we had these wonderful guys, just passing away through something we didn't even know what it was, to be honest with you. And we were afraid that we would be the next ones. That's how much we didn't know much about this. So we get to New England, and this is happening. And I just said to some friends of mine, you believe that? You believe that we're going to keep getting married now after all this ugliness that we have gone through? So here it is. It comes out that in Massachusetts, we're going to be the first to accept marriage. And I went, what? I don't believe this. I was still, feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe this stuff. So I remember I was home that night, and I was hearing this in our den on the TV, and Bobby was cooking. And Bob and I were together quite a few years at that time. And I went over and I said to Bob, I said to him, hey, would you like to go to a wedding or something? He looked at me and I says, you want to marry me? And he looked at me and he says, no. So I says, well, that New England is having, you're kidding me. I says, no. So I proposed to him, and I'm not the mushy one. Bobby is. He should be proposing to me, And we got married. We had a wonderful wedding here. But that was something that was like, I can't believe this is happening after all this stuff that, we went through, especially the gay people, Stonewall and the AIDS virus.
During Stonewall, in that era, did you have any sense at that time that it was going to be a turning point in American society?
No, Rick, we were asked that question we did a show. No, we were just young guys, young girls, young drag queens, all of us. And we were going through a moment of our life, because if you ever went to a theater to see Judy Garland, it was full. It was 90% gay people. We loved this woman, and we were out, and we were not celebrating. We were there to remember her, and just have a good time with each other at that moment that we all felt really down and all that. Never did we ever think that. As a matter of fact, Rick, I'm going to tell you something. After Stonewall, when we went home, that riot went on to like 3:00 in the morning or something. It went on for about 3 or 4 days. But that night, we thought, oh my God, if they find that book with our names on it, they're going to be at our door. They're going to arrest us, right? And they're going to lock us up. That's what we're thinking. Luckily, we found out that one of the boys at the Stonewall grabbed the book and took the book and put it somewhere, I don't know where. That was just a thing that this kid just thought of, that book right away. You know what I mean? No, we never thought that, Rick. Never.
Wow. So you lived through this moment of history as an observer and also participant in it. And, Dave, as we talk here, I'm curious, if I may say so, you're now in your 80s. Is that correct?
Oh, God, no, I'm 55. Well, I get this, I really get this. Bob and I, people say, how old are you? And I'll go, well, yeah, I'm going to be 82. You hear that, Rick?
Yeah.
82. And then, you are? I says, wow, because I'm not humpback and I'm not on a stretcher.
No, you're a very young 82, my friend. And I'm curious, when you talk to young LGBTQ people today, what do you say to them about civil and human rights? And what do you want them to know, to find out about, and to never forget?
Rick, that's a question that I've been asked many, many times. And then talking to young people. And the only thing that really bothers me is that I don't want to see, me and the other guys that are still alive, we don't want to be known as an L and a T and a G and a B and a Q. We don't want to be known for that. We want to be known as gay people. We're all one. I don't care if you're called a queer or if you're cross-dresser or whatever. We are gay people. And we should treat each other as one. And when I hear, well, a lesbian did that. Oh, it was somebody else that started. It doesn't matter what it was. We were gay people fighting to leave us alone. Just, would stop harassing us because what we felt and our desires, just because you feel, excuse me, that I'm queer because I love another man. Excuse me, Rick. And I look at them and I'll say, one of the things that I'm looking at is that I see you're all using these names, these L's, the B's, the T's, the Q's. Why don't you say, look, we're one family, we're one loving family. And when us young kids were in the bar, we didn't say, oh, we're fighting for us that are not really gay, or we're fighting for us because we are, drag queens. No, we were fighting for all of us.
In the years since Stonewall, Dave has been very active in the Stonewall Veterans Association, a group dedicated to memorializing Stonewall and its significance in the American gay rights movement. Can you talk about the Stonewall Veterans Association, your involvement in it, and what it is doing to kind of memorialize what happened in 1969?
Okay, let me go back to 69, Rick. That boy that was being beat up at the door that I was trying to help, right? One day we hear, and Bobby found out, somebody sent him some email or something, is David Bermudez living here and all that? And Bobby says, yes, we'd like to talk with them. Well, it was the head of the Stonewall Association in New York City. And they were in the Greenwich Village. So I was talking to this guy. So he says, hey, could we meet? Would you come? I says, oh, yeah, we once in a while we'll go to New York City. So Bobby and I got together and we went to to New York. We went to Greenwich Village. We got into this little burger place and we were waiting for him. So he's come walking in and I looked at Bobby and I said, that guy they're coming in? I mean, this is many years later, right? I said, he looks familiar. Well, I'm sure, when you see somebody, even if we're getting older, there's something about us that we still look, there's a look. So he comes over and he says, Dave, and I says, yeah, hi, how are you? And we sat down at a little booth and we were talking and all that. Now he is interviewing people that are supposed to be in the bar, not outside, in the bar, when they came in and closed us in. And, a lot of people he interviewed were lying and or whatever. So he gets into things. So he says to me, what is one of the things that you really, 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 really hurt you or bothered you, Dave? I says, yeah, I'll give you one. So I told him the story about the boy who was, getting beat up and feisty, and I thought they were going to kill him, and I think he's dead now and all that. And he looked at me and he says, David, I'm that boy.
A survivor like you.
Yes. And he became the head of the Stonewall Association in New York City, and he was a type of guy that would say, we had this, he's feisty. We had this going on. We're not going to let this go. We're not going to, we're going to talk about this. We're going to start something. So he started the Association of the Stonewall Veterans of the Stonewall. And the veterans are the people that were in the bar, the drag queens, whatever. Not the ones that were outside, because that was something different. And, we couldn't believe this. And I said, Williamson, he can't believe he says, yeah, I'm the one. And thank you, Dave. I says, I thought you, the boy, was dead, to be honest with you,
Yes.
and we became close, and Bob, and we just marched in New York City at the parade. I was a marshal in Manhattan with Bobby, and it was wonderful. So we have an association. It's called the Stonewall Association, and a Veterans Association. That's right. Bobby just reminded me. It's the Veterans Association, and it's in Greenwich Village. You can look it up, and it's run by Williamson. His name is William Williamson. William Williamson, and anybody that wants to contribute, they can contribute to him. And he's kept it going, and they have all kinds of things. They have parties, they get into politics. He gets into everything, you know what I mean? And I did a show in Manhattan with this lady, and to talk about this and all that. But and we still have the Veterans Association. We still have it there. So if anybody wants to, just look it up, and
they'd appreciate support, I'm sure. And
yeah. If you go on the internet and you go on to David Bermudez, or David Bermudez, Stonewall veteran, I'm in there, and then you'll see the article about the association and all that kind of stuff.
Just a couple of more questions, Dave.
You mean I'm talking too much?
It's really wonderful, everything you're talking about. We talked about this the other day, and I wanted to ask you about it again. Is, given your experience with the police back in the 60s, getting beaten up, what's your feeling when you see video footage nowadays of cops beating up Black people? What kind of reaction does that generate in you?
Well, Rick, I want to say something. I'm Puerto Rican, and my grandmother's mother was Black. I'm biracial, and not only that, too, beating up like that. I mean, what's going on? It's too emotional. Sometimes Bobby will calm me down. He says, Dave, I go, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And they go on and on and on and on and on. And it's almost like it's not stopping. And it gets to me, and when I talk to the guys too, it gets to them too. But the only thing I could say is, fight your way or get involved in politics. Do something that there's a change to this, a real change. I don't want to hear tomorrow they killed another Black boy or a Black girl. This is ridiculous, and it's just very, to us. It's in our heart. It's in our soul. You know what I mean? Especially when you have gotten beat up. The feeling of that. But and a lot of my friends who are Puerto Ricans, Cubanos, we have African blood behind us. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter that I'm white and I'm not Black, you know what I mean? But it's within, it's here, it's with us. And that's something that I can't see that for nobody. I don't want to see anybody because you're Irish or you're Jewish or whatever. I don't want to see that. We're, like I'm saying about the gays, we're one people. Why don't we just become one people and get it over with, I get a little upset over that.
Well, what I hear you saying is that we have to remain vigilant to ensure that our rights are not trodden on, and we have to be vigilant. Yeah,
and vigilant. And I think, like Bobby says, Bobby's in politics. Get involved in politics if you want to change something.
Well, and Bobby, of course, is your husband, and we're going to interview both you and he in the second installment of this podcast. And I do just want to say, sort of post Stonewall, and we'll get into more of this, but you went on, you had a career as a singer, antiques dealer, I believe, and at the time of Stonewall, you were a window dresser, right, for a New York City department store, eh?
Yeah, Bloomingdale's, Lord and Taylor's. You know what I mean? I wanted to become a designer. And then I told you I was married. And went to New York. And at night, I went to NYU and I took up courses. You could go to a university like NYU in Manhattan and take a course at night. And I did that. And then I got involved. And for a while, I started doing windows and things like that, and then I got into design.
Yes.
And then I got tired of it and I started singing.
And that is another story, and we'll get into more of that in the next installment. I did want to say I'd be remiss if I didn't say proudly that both you and Bob are members of PFLAG Cape Cod. And let's maybe end this installment, if we can. I'd love to hear you talk about the value of organizations like PFLAG Cape Cod to be of service to members of the LGBTQ community and their families and friends.
They're wonderful people, they just, and the whole thing behind PFLAG, I hope a lot of people don't think that PFLAG is only run by gay people. No. A lot of straight people are with PFLAG, you know what I mean? And we've gone to a lot of meetings. We've had over here in Hyannis, before the virus, we had something over here, right? In one of the, downtown. And they're just wonderful people. They're really, really involved in this, and it's just wonderful just to be around these people. And, and being who I am or whoever got involved, it's wonderful because they asked me to talk and they learn a lot themselves. You know what I mean? It's a wonderful organization. Wonderful.
Well, we're delighted to have you both as members of the group, and you contribute so much. So, well, David Bermudez, thank you again for this interview and for sharing your wisdom, strength, and hope with us as we look forward to the 52nd anniversary of Stonewall as an iconic historical event in our nation's history. Yeah, thank you so much. And to our listeners, just one other comment. David and his husband, Bob Isidore, are among those recently interviewed for Jane Fleischman's book, The Stonewall Generation, LGBTQ Elders on Sex, Activism, and Aging, published by Skinner House Books of Boston. So, Dave, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Rick. It was such a pleasure. I hope I didn't talk too much.
Thank you for listening to today's interview. Founded in 1973, PFLAG is the first and largest organization for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people and their parents, families, friends, and allies. We have over 400 chapters and more than 200,000 members and supporters nationwide. Our members come from every generation and live in cities, small towns, and rural areas across the United States. PFLAG is committed to creating a world where diversity is celebrated and all people are respected, valued, and affirmed. For more information about PFLAG, explore the rest of this website or visit PFLAG National at pflag.org.